You know you're going to die. Right now, while you're watching this video, you know. You don't feel any danger. You don't see the threat. You just know. In the background, like a working refrigerator. No other animal on the planet carries this knowledge all the time. Only you. The question is not how you live with it. The question is, are you even thinking about it? Or did you find a way not to think long ago? Because if you've found it, congratulations, you're using the most ancient invention of mankind. No, not with the wheel, by God. The central question of this video is whether God exists. This is not the conversation. The question is different, and it is more inconvenient. Why does the human brain, literally every brain on every continent in every era, produce religion? That's not why people believe, and why can't they not believe? This is not a question about God. This is a question about the architecture of your head. And the answer is the strangest one I've heard in a long time. There are three popular answers. You know them all. Version 1. Believers. Religion exists because God is real. People didn't invent it, they felt it. A revelation, not an invention. Okay, but then explain why did the Aztecs, who had never heard of Christianity, come up with exactly the same idea of sacrifice for reconciliation with the Supreme? An accident? Or did the same God speak to people in different languages at the same time without warning them about each other? Religion was invented by priests and rulers to control the people. Opium for the masses, an instrument of power in a metaphysical package. The problem, the priests of Amazonia and the priests of Egypt did not call each other. They didn't have Zoom conferences, and yet the same structure, the same rituals, the same logic. It was too much of a coordinated conspiracy for people who didn't know each other existed. People were afraid of thunder and invented Zeus. Religion is a primitive science. If you don't know why a volcano is erupting, come up with a god of volcanoes. It's cute, but it doesn't explain why the Egyptians, Mayans, Scandinavians, and ancient Chinese, peoples who never crossed paths, have the idea of an afterlife. Is everyone's fear of thunder the same, or something deeper? None of the three versions answers the main question. Why do religions look the same where there was no contact and could not be? That's what changes the whole picture. Shamanism in Siberia and the Amazon is almost identical. Funeral rituals in Africa and Melanesia are one structure. Sacrifice as reconciliation with the Supreme on all continents independently. If someone invented religion, it's not people of a particular culture. The brain invented it, the human brain as such, and this is a completely different conversation. Because if religion is a product of the brain, the question is no longer who invented it. The question is, why does the brain need this? And that's where the real fun begins. Your brain is a blame-finding machine, literally. Millions of years of evolution have set it up for one task: to find an agent. Someone or something is behind everything that is happening. Rustle in the bushes, wind, or predator. The brain that always answered predator survived. The brain that said, come on, it's probably the wind, sometimes became someone's dinner. Evolution is ruthless. Paranoids live longer. Scientists call this the HADD, Hyperactive Agency Detection Device. Hyperactive definition of agency. That's why you see faces in the clouds. That is why the computer is intentionally freezing right now. That is why when a loved one dies, the brain cannot accept it just happened and begins to look for a meaning, a plan. God is not an invention of weak people. This is the answer that the brain generates automatically when faced with a question for which it has no data. It's not a weakness. This is neuroscience. Now let's add a second layer, the one that is usually not spoken out loud. You know you're going to die. We have already established it, but here's what's interesting. This knowledge is an evolutionary disaster. An animal that constantly thinks about death is paralyzed. It does not eat, does not reproduce, does not hunt. It just sits there and suffers existentially. How did humanity survive with this knowledge in its head? Psychologists call this the terror management theory. Research shows that when people are reminded of death, even indirectly, even just by interviewing near a funeral home, they become more aggressive towards strangers, more conservative, and hold on to their beliefs more tightly. Knowing about mortality literally changes behavior in real time. Religion solves this problem ingeniously. Death is not the end. You're part of something bigger that doesn't die. Your life makes sense in a coordinate system that transcends your biology. This is not a hoax. From the point of view of functionality, this is the best solution to a problem that cannot be solved otherwise. Religion has given people the opportunity to know about death and still get out of bed in the morning. Not a small achievement. The 1990s, Turkey, the hill that they started digging, and they found something that broke our entire chronology of civilization. Göbekli Tepe, monumental stone buildings with carved images of animals. Age? 12,000 years. 7,000 years older than Stonehenge, older than the Egyptian pyramids by 8,000. The main oddity, there are no traces of a settlement nearby, no houses, no agriculture, only the temple. Before this discovery, it was believed that people first built cities, then temples. The logic is simple. First food and a roof, then luxury in the form of gods. Göbekli Tepe says the opposite. People gathered for the sake of a sacred place, and this is what made them organize, establish supplies, and agree to work together. Religion gave birth to civilization, not the other way around. Okay, you say, it's all about the ancients. We're smarter now. Look around you. Nationalism works exactly like religion. A common origin myth, sacred symbols or the flag and the anthem, martyrs and heroes, rituals, parades, swearing in, enemies to defeat, and the promise of belonging to something bigger than yourself. Communism in the 20th century, sacred texts, Marx, Lenin, prophets and heretics, the Inquisition, purges, heaven on earth as communism is the final point of history, martyrs of the revolution. This is not a metaphor, it's literally the same structure. Modern movements, environmentalism, transhumanism, the cult of rationalism in Silicon Valley, all of them reproduce the religious structure, revelation, the righteous, sinners, salvation through right behavior. When people announce that they have abandoned religion, they almost never abandon a religious structure, they just change the content. And here is a question that is inconvenient to ask out loud. If religion is a technology for coordinating large groups of people, who uses it today and why? Harari calls it imaginary orders, money, laws, the state. It all works because everyone agreed to consider them real. Religion was the first such protocol, the most powerful. But here's the interesting thing. A state that removed religion, like the Soviet Union, did not abandon the mechanism. It just created a new religion, the state one, with new icons, new martyrs, a new inquisition, because the mechanism is too effective to abandon it. Power does not destroy religion. The government privatizes it. And the question, what do you believe in, becomes the question, who wants you to believe exactly that and why? Let's see what happens when this mechanism works on the scale of civilizations. What religion has made possible? The construction of medieval cathedrals, projects for several generations. The people who would not live to see the end of the construction were working with full dedication because they did it for God, not for themselves. This is an unprecedented level of cooperation over time. The Islamic Caliphate united territories from Spain to India in 100 years through a religious impulse that had no precedent in terms of speed of spread. The Crusades mobilized armies from different countries speaking different languages through a common faith. Without a single state, without a common currency, there is only faith. And what religion has made inevitable, the same mechanism works the other way. A religion that unites its own people automatically creates others. A non-believer is not just another person. This is a threat to the sacred order. Hence the Inquisition, jihad, and religious wars that killed tens of millions of people. Religion is the most powerful tool of cooperation in the history of mankind, and the most dangerous when directed against another group. This is not a side effect, it's the same power with a different sign. Unification inside and exclusion outside are two sides of the same coin. And it works the same way in the medieval church, in the Soviet Party, and in any modern movement that divides people into orthodox and heretics. Good. Then who invented religion? The answer we've come to is no one in particular, and at the same time, everything. Not a cunning priest, not a scared primitive man, not a ruler who needs a tool of control. Religion was invented by the human brain in the process of solving several fundamental problems simultaneously: how to cope with the knowledge of death, how to coordinate large groups, how to find meaning in chaos, how to live with unanswered questions. And here is an unexpected conclusion. If religion is a solution to real problems, it cannot simply be abolished by enlightenment or science. Science explains how thunder works. She does not explain why your child died. She gives no meaning to suffering. She does not gather strangers around a common sacred thing, at least not in the way faith does. This is not an argument in favor of the fact that religion is the truth. It's an argument in favor of the fact that it is functional, and that the function it performs has not gone away. 20th and 21st century. Experiments with substitutes. The 20th century tried to fill the void with political religions, nationalism, communism, fascism. The result is known. The 21st century is trying technology, science, and the market. Let's see what happens. Not really yet. The philosopher William James wrote at the beginning of the 20th century, "The question of whether God exists is less important than the question of what happens to a person who believes." Regardless of whether religion is metaphysically true, it produces real effects in the real world. Makes sense. Gives the community. It makes death not easy but bearable. Allows strangers to trust each other. These are not small things. If everything I said is true, if religion is not superstition or deception, but your brain's structural response to questions that are otherwise unbearable, then the question to believe or not to believe becomes less interesting than the other one. What exactly do you believe in? In what kind of void does this fill? It doesn't matter if you believe in God, in progress, in science, in chance, in the nation, in the market, in rationalism, or in the special mission of your startup. What is behind this belief? What unbearable question does it make bearable? Because everyone has these questions. The only difference is how honestly we admit it to ourselves. And here's what's really scary. Maybe this very honesty is also a form of faith. The belief that the truth is better than an illusion. But who told you that? And why do you believe that?